Greetings, everyone. Welcome once again to the Oz and Crew Reviews podcast. As always, I am your host, Ozzy, and with me, as always, is my co host, Mad Matt.
A lot of people died today.
A lot of people died in this movie. Uh, when we got to the end, I was like, I think this is the most blood I've ever seen in a non horror movie.
Just about.
Um, and this is going to be an interesting one to talk about because we cannot repeat a lot of words that are said in this movie.
Matter of fact, I think technically the only one that should be allowed outside the movie to repeat some of those words is only Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes, because he's the only, well, he's not the only black person in the movie, but he's the only one that gets more than like a minute of screen time.
Yeah.
Um, and it takes place in a time period when a lot of people in America were very racist and used a lot of colorful language, so to speak.
A very colorful pattern of language, yes.
A lot of use of a word that starts with N, and that's all I'm going to say about it because I don't want to say anything that'll get this video like age restricted or something. You want to start with like the synopsis kind of thing?
So let's start off the synopsis. Okie dokie. So basically, the entirety of the opening credits starts with a zoom out on a statue of the cross of Jesus with Jesus on it, half covered in snow in a big mountain range. We come to find out that there's a carriage coming through being pulled by 6 horses. The person at the helm is, what was it? OB was they,
Yeah,
they called him?
yeah. OB was his
Yeah.
name, played by James Parks.
Um, he is been paid a handsome sum to bring this coach with only 2 occupants, running solo off any of the normal lists to get to Red Rock as fast as possible. For, in particular, in the 2 that are in there, John, a bounty hunter, John Roof, full name, and his recent quarry that he's bringing in alive, Daisy DeMorg.
Domergue.
Don't Domergue, yeah, Domergue, that he's bringing alive because that's what John is known for. John the Hangman Ruth. He always makes sure they come in alive, and he always makes sure to stay there until they're hung.
He's played
On
by
their
Kurt,
way,
he's played by Kurt Russell, which is the other biggest person in this
name
aside
outside
from-
of Samuel Jackson, yeah. Um, as they're coming across the mountain range, they are stopped by a man sitting on a pile of bodies in the middle of the road. This would be Samuel L. Jackson's character, Major Marquis Warren. Mr. Warren has collected 3 bounties. Sadly, in the midst of getting there, though, his longtime steady and highly praised horse finally got himself hurt and killed. And Mr. Warren was looking to try and get any kind of transportation post haste. Else freeze out in the cold. After a few moments, John realizes who Warren is, and Warren recognizes him as sorry, burping. And he's allowed onto the coach, and the body's put up with the rest of the luggage. Further on down the road, there's a bit of communication between characters, and a letter in particular from a certain Mr. Lincoln is brought up that Warren has. And when Daisy spits on it, Marquise punches her, which then knocks John out the door as well because they're attached by the wrist with handcuffs. This is how John makes sure that his quarry does not escape. There's a bit of colorful language yet again out in the snow. The letter is regained, but as they do so, another person makes himself known on the ridge. This would be would this be Oswaldo? No, that's not. That's later.
It was, Chris Mannix, played by Walton Goggins. Sheriff Chris Mannix.
I'm trying to find that. No, that's just.
If you're on IMDb, he's right under Kurt Russell.
Oh, Sheriff. That's why I'm missing him. Sheriff Chris Mannix, because he is the new sheriff of Red Rock. He's on his way over to hang the man that killed the previous sheriff, and then also continue on with business as usual. Of course, John does not believe him because he knows a bit about Chris's background, But long story short, even though he was planning on cuffing everyone who was new to the coach, when he refuses, but can easily legal ease have OB have John put into chains and killed for killing the future sheriff, he unwillingly uncuffs Marquise again and tells him, "Hey, if we got a bargain, I protect your stuff, you protect mine, and we're gonna get through this." So the entire time they've been also trying to run a blizzard, which is slowly catching them moment by moment. But they finally reach at least a rest house. What was it called again?
Minnie's haberdashery.
Minnie's Haberdashery, which a fair number of these people know, just having been through the area how many times. Minnie's very well known and respected as well as her family. And they decided to stop in. For some strange reason, though, Minnie's not there. Her family's not there. They're apparently visiting the other side of the mountain with Minnie's family. And Bob has been left behind to take care of things. Bob continues to put up with questions, of course, because it seems a bit strange that he's there. But he continues to do his best and continues to be as good of a host as he possibly can, trying to keep the coffee warm, trying to keep food on the table when people need it, etc., etc. Um, this is when we also get introduced to a couple of more characters that were inside. In particular, we got what was it? Gosh,
Well, there's Oswaldo Mowbray, who's the
Oswaldo.
the
Yep,
hangman.
he's supposed to be, he is the hangman. He has a very heavy British accent. He's also on his way there to help the sheriff hang the past sheriff murderer. We also get mention of another general there.
Yeah, General Sandy Smith, who's a former Confederate general.
Mm-hmm. And also Joe Gage. That's the other one. There he is. Joe just seems to be another person passing through. He's actually also on his way to get back home to meet up with mother and finally passes away the holidays over at his family's place. Seems to be his main go-to. He just had a huge cattle haul and made a decent amount of coin, and is just trying to head back home to relax for a short while. Um, Long story short, the our main characters obviously suspect something's very strange going on around here because this is a family-owned and run operation, and not a single one of them are around. And there's a few things here and there that seem to be out of place, though they don't mention them right away because they're also keeping an eye on everyone. Water. I'm trying to remember when things finally started coming to head. I know that Samuel L. Jackson's first clue was that he saw one of the jelly beans out of place still sitting on the floor.
Right.
We don't know what that means right away, but you see him take a long look and interest in that one.
Yeah, and there's well, he like I think the thing is right away he questioned because you didn't mention there was the point where aside from Bob taking care of the food and beverage, he also helped put the
Oh,
horses in the
was the
stable.
horses up? Yep, and he was
And
helping that too. And was
and
questioning him a lot
yeah,
during it.
yeah, he questioned him a lot during that, and Joe and Bob keeps going, "Are you calling me a liar?" And he's like, "I haven't called you that yet. I'm just saying it's strange." Every time he asks him a question that he manages to actually have an answer for.
Mm-hmm. Also, while that's going on, what was it? Chris and OB are outside putting up lines so people can get to the stable, the horse stable, as well as the outhouse if they need to.
Yeah, they put a bunch of metal spikes in the ground and ran rope through it so that there's a trail so you can see what the fuck you're doing in the dark and blizzard. Because I imagine it would not be easy
Whiteout
to.
conditions, yeah. Even with a little bit of light, it's hard to tell sometimes. Um,
But when things really get crazy, there are multiple hints that occur before things really come to a head, but they're not hints the audience is really aware of until Samuel L. Jackson's character, Marquis Warren,
Oh, I
brings them
remember
up
now.
later. But the
Hmm.
point where things kind of get a little bit crazy is when, he's a black man and there's a former Confederate general here. And he fought in battles against this guy's troops.
Yes, they were both in the same area.
And he brings up the fact that he ran into the general's son and I'm not going to repeat everything he said because it gets
Very graphic.
really dark and really graphic, but needless to say, he admittedly, you understand why he did this because it's the son of a general that killed a bunch of black people just because.
Yeah.
But he described a very sadistic way of killing his son,
Hmm.
all to get him to goad him into picking up a pistol so that he could kill him in self defense.
Yep. And he ended at the end of that, he finally cracks. And after that crack, and after a bit of debate between characters, is when things finally start to get cooking. And now I finally remember where we're at.
The coffee,
Um, in short, Daisy sees someone, not saying who yet, tamper with the coffee pot. They put a bunch of vile brown liquid into it, and this is likely poison. To this, as she finally decides to put on a slight distraction of picking up a guitar to play it, which John begrudgingly allows her to do, John and OB both go for the coffee and start to drink.
right? And
John did not
OB,
drink as much, but OB was like
yeah,
2 cups in.
yeah, well, yeah, because OB just came back in from being outside again. We got to remember he
Yes.
actually had to go outside
He had to
twice
go outside at least twice, and
because
each time it got worse for
yeah,
him.
because we missed the part where
The first time he went out was after they collected the guns and
yeah,
put the
yeah,
guns in the
yeah.
outhouse
Because
with the ammo.
John was suspicious of everybody from the get go, and
Hmm.
took everyone's guns away. So Obi's been out there twice in the blizzard. So
And now because of the dead general, they
yeah,
put the dead general out there, and he's come back
yeah,
again.
he came back in and chugged the fuck out of that coffee.
Oh yeah. Does not take long before both OB and John start vomiting up blood because of the poison. OB is basically on all fours, puking up his blood before too long, while John is at least only having had a bit of it, is fighting with Daisy for a bit before she finally shoots him.
Yeah, I assume even though his thing is usually to bring someone in to hang, I think he's aware of the fact that he's gonna die. So he was planning on
Ending
killing
her
her,
before he got ended himself. Yes.
but she got a
Um.
hold of his gun and killed him.
Yes. Um. This is when things take an even weirder twist because the sheriff was also about to drink from the coffee when all this goes down. So Chris drops the coffee and quickly starts rounding everybody up alongside Samuel L. Jackson, who was also an outsider. So they're well aware that these other three, among them, has got to be at least one, if not two, other people who have done something wrong. Because Marquis Samuel Jackson's character is sussing out what's happening here because, again, he's been here before. He knows better. Something isn't right. He uncovers a chair that used to be the male owner's favorite chair and finds a giant blood stain. He then deduces that the entire family is not on vacation, that they got killed and iced and probably dumped outside somewhere. I believe it is decided later that it was the well due to a flashback. And then they try to figure out which of the three are the wrongdoers here. But obviously, very obviously, if the family's dead, then the guy who's then posing as the one running the place is to blame and gets shot, and Bob is down.
Yeah,
His face literally blown clean off his skull. And I believe it's shortly after this, as they're about to open fire, that another party hiding in the basement makes itself known as they literally blow off the bits between Samuel Jackson's legs, which then opens up another bit of fire, which then shoots down the British voiced Oswaldo, and leaves only Gage left. Um,
Which
we get the
I
flashback
want to
that
point
details
out.
that all these people brutally murdered the previous owners. And you want to say something?
Yeah, when Samuel L. Jackson's character gets shot, it's not apparent right away where he got shot. I thought he got shot in the
Oh,
leg.
I was pretty sure where he got shot.
Okay.
I know Hollywood movies. I know where he got shot, and I'm like, oh damn, he did him dirty. Um, they don't go to it right away, but it's pretty. If you're a guessing person, you got two guesses, and one of them's gonna likely be right.
It's either where he actually got shot or it's his leg.
Yeah. Um.
The
So
flashback. You're
so we go to the flashback. We show that all these characters are all involved. They all murdered the previous visitors and family. And then hid their bodies in the well, and then put things away just in time for the new group to show up.
the only spared General Sandy Smith because
He's
the
technically an outsider and didn't put up a fight,
right.
and as long as he just kept his mouth shut, he'd be let go.
They also figured
Continue what
he.
I was
Yeah, they
doing.
also figured he'd make a convincing set piece to make it not seem weird that the place was really empty.
Yeah, I would have a full four people or three people visiting instead of just two, which would be very weird trying running a coach of only two people and nobody in there. Um, so Oswaldo is still technically alive, but barely gets any words in. He's pretty much on the ropes. Joe Gage is the only one left unharmed because he didn't have a weapon to get at anybody with, at least at the time during the big shootout. And they convince, oh, what's his name? Daisy's brother to come out.
Yeah. What was his? I'm trying to remember what his character's name was. Um.
Smoke you, but that's I don't see him on the short list for the movie. That's how long a time and how many lines he gets. He's less important than the rest of these folk.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go to the full cast thing. Um.
I mean, he gets a very short appearance, but at least he makes a decent impression as a lead head.
Yeah.
And he's been hiding down there the entire time. And he throws out a gun, tries to tell the others that he doesn't have a second gun, but then he gets told, "You better shit out of one, otherwise we're going to come in there blazing." He tosses out another gun, comes out with his hands up, butter smoothly slow. Basically gets a couple seconds to say hello to his sister before his brains are blown out, and basically gets told by Samuel L. Jackson, "He took too long giving up."
That
It,
line. I think
yeah,
his name was Jody because he was played, but he's the guy that played by Channing Tatum. Yeah, that's just that. The thing is, I was looking for a last name because they said his
yeah. I
full
don't see
name.
I don't see a last name on him. He's not
Yeah,
listed with one at least.
yeah. He. So they didn't list his
Character with the last name.
full character name.
Yeah.
That's what was throwing me
Um.
off.
Yeah. So Jody got shot by Marquise. And then they start trying to make a bargain. Essentially, they're threatening that Red Rock will be destroyed by the 15 remaining members of the gang that they're all a part of, which is why there's a huge bounty on Daisy's head, because there's a huge bounty on all the members' heads, although some of them bigger than others. Daisy was, I think, like one of the top five. Jody was a little higher. Um, Bob technically was one of the bigger ones, but no face. You can't say for sure it's him. So he's basically worth nothing.
Yeah, it wasn't his true name like Mark the Mexican or something weird.
Let's see. There was a extended name that they had him with in here somewhere. I just saw it like a moment ago. The main
No, that's
breach
his
your.
actor's name. That's the actor's
Oh,
name.
oh, never mind. That's the
Oh,
actor's name.
yeah, yeah. I don't know
But
why
yeah,
it
the
says that, but yeah.
but
So the weird thing is, all of the gang members were using a fake name, which I mean
yeah,
that makes sense. They don't want you to know who they are if you've actually heard of their.
but it's hard to name names when you're also like, well, what was their real name again? I can't remember. They only say it
This,
once.
yeah, because it's what they were called for most of the movie. So
Yeah. So yeah, but essentially, altogether, with a lot of the bodies that were still there was still quite a bit of money to be made. But the long and short of it is that both Marquise as well as Chris, who was also wounded in the leg during the shootout and is quickly losing blood, they both believe in their current state that the whole tale of 15 gang members that are going to wreck Red Rock is a bunch of BS. And I would also wager, given the Wild West, I guarantee you a bunch of those people in Red Rock probably know this kind of BS comes along and are probably heavily armed, and then 15 people are going to get shot down real fast. If it's a big town, especially. But they in short decide, nah, it ain't worth it, and the whole lot of you get to get gone. So they shoot Joe. They shoot the last remaining breaths out of Oswaldo, and they decide that Jennifer doesn't get the easy route out.
you called her by her
She gets
you called her by her actual name, Daisy.
oh Jennifer Daisy doesn't get the easy way out. Daisy gets to go out the way that John would have wanted her to go out, a hanging of the neck. So the two of them, still heavily injured, quickly losing blood and about to die, still hang her by the rafters in the house, tie her to a bedpost, and let her slowly strangle to death in midair. And that is the end of the movie.
Yeah, and the weird thing about this whole thing near the end with Chris and Marquis teaming up is that until he almost died from drinking poison coffee, these two were at each other's throat the whole movie.
Constantly
Because
giving each other shit because they're again opposing sides of the war.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
because
Chris
because
was Chris was a son of a general, I believe, on the other side. And
yeah,
then they kept also pushing some sort of militia of their own, even after things had died down.
yep. Which is also why John didn't believe he was actually going to be the sheriff. He's like, there's no way somebody with this guy's history would become a sheriff. But you know,
Funny enough, he had the paperwork.
when you're living in a when you're dealing with a dangerous times, sometimes you just got to pick who you think can do the job.
Like it or not, yeah.
Did you have any expectations going into this?
I knew it was a western of some kind, and that was about all I really knew much about it. Oh, and that there was a woman that had a black eye, and that because she was in a lot of the promotional material.
Yeah, and it's because was a captured psychotic murderer.
Yep. Something
Um,
about bounty hunters, and that was about it. Yeah. So I had no idea, and there's a lot of hints in this movie to Kurt Russell's previous 1980s hit flick, The Thing. There's some musical cues that remind me of it. OB has a hat that very highly reminds me of it. Hat and glasses, by the way. He has some sort of like winter goggles or whatever he has on half the film. Also, the fact that they're all stranded more or less in the same spot the entire movie, with very little places to go in the middle of dead of winter.
and in spite of that, they managed to write the movie in a way that it didn't feel like you sat there watching a 3 hour movie. In spite of the fact that they just stayed in one place the whole time.
Yeah. Well, that's a sign of decent writing. That's a sign of some very good writing. Is what you do with that limited amount of space. Again,
Yeah.
John Carpenter did the same thing in the '80s. There's like maybe two times the entire movie in the thing where they actually get away from that military base, that science base rather, to look at things, and they're very brief, and you're right back at it again.
Because with this movie, outside of the snowy wilderness, they have one set piece for the whole movie, and that's that the Minnie's haberdashery, which is basically a fancy cabin that has a
Fancy
stable.
cabin for people to stay in with the horse stable and an outhouse.
Yeah,
And a well, although we don't see the well very often.
Yeah, we literally only saw the well in the flashback when they were dumping the corpses into it.
Which also brings up a key point. That's a nasty well now.
Yeah. And the thing is, when I originally watched this, until I got to the point where somebody poisoned the coffee, I thought John's character was just paranoid. Like, with the minute somebody actually poisoned the coffee, I was like, oh shit, he's actually right.
That's when it starts clicking. Like, oh no, something really is wrong here. Who done it? Who's all involved in it? Tick 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 tick.
But yeah, and when Marquis puts everything together after he was almost like fucking Batman adding all the clues up.
Right.
Where like he's like, well, Chris goes, so you really do believe me that I am the sheriff when he's willing to work with him. He's like I don't know about all that, but I sure as hell know you're not working with them. You almost drank that coffee.
Right.
And then he's pointing out all the things that don't add up about like Bob's story. He had like a long laundry list of what was wrong with the story because of just various things
There's
not
things
making.
he knew about the family, like the chair.
Yeah, and
He didn't
after
mention it, but the jelly bean. People not wearing hats in the building. But the big kicker was a sign that was missing.
was that it was that, and also the fact that the stew tasted exactly like Minnie's stew always does. So he knows there's no way that Bob is actually the one that made it. But yes, the
It obviously
sign.
had to have been already being prepped by her before he finished it. Yeah.
The sign that until 2 years ago, she had a sign that said no dogs and no Mexicans. And Bob is a Mexican.
Yep.
He's like she took the sign down, but even if she's serving them as customers, somebody that had that mindset 2 years ago isn't likely to suddenly stop being racist towards Mexicans and hire one as an employee.
Yeah. Not very likely at all, especially out in the boonies.
Yeah, which and the weird thing is we realize even though there was so many incidences when they first showed up where the general was basically just trying to avoid people talking to him because they basically when they spared him they basically told him you sit there and you don't fucking talk to anybody. So even though in the flashback we see that he doesn't actually, in spite of being a general from the Confederate Army during the war, he had
He's not
he
really
he
spiteful to the
yeah,
black people that own the building.
yeah, he had no issue going to a business that was owned by a black woman. But he was being racist as shit to Marquis the whole time that they were there so that he would not talk to him. He was trying to keep him from talking to him so that he wouldn't get the crazy people to kill him.
I'm self killed anyways.
Yeah, for unrelated reasons because he didn't, know that he was going to run into somebody that actually had beef with him from the war. But yeah, that was so much of there because there were so many little hints throughout the movie that you really only know about when somebody else points out how things are off. And
Yep.
I kind of pointed out like even though it wasn't like a dead giveaway, it is kind of odd to have like a man with a British accent as a hangman in America. In
He
that in
really
that
is
in
out
that
of water.
in that particular time period. Like
He's
we
not
did,
unheard of, but he is very much a fish out of water.
yeah, we didn't have as many people coming here from other countries back in that time period that didn't already come over during the whole thing where everybody came here in search of a new world.
Yeah.
Um, There are so many good lines in this too, though a lot of them have escaped me because the movie's so long and it's trying to remember them afterwards. Like in the first scene, like we look, most. I think you agree with me that like most of the characters in this, out like the main cast, not
Mm.
not the business owners that were murdered in the flashback, but most of the characters in this are straight up assholes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And you like immediately see that where the part where Marquis trying to get a ride from John on his coach, and even though he doesn't want to let him in, when Daisy starts being a racist bitch to him and you know throwing the N word out, freaking John just immediately is like, I didn't say you could talk to him like that, and freaking pistol whips her.
Yeah.
It's like it's one of those things. It's like, okay, like she's awful because she was acting like that, but also pistol whipping someone that's handcuffed is also a bit excessive. But there's just so much crazy shit that happened. What did you think about the movie overall?
Overall, I think this is yet another really good one. I have seen some of brain fart. The some of this director's work before. I can't remember his name. Quentin Tarantino's work before. Um, so far, I haven't seen a movie I didn't like from him. Um, this one definitely feels like it's lands a little closer to Pulp Fiction. Not 100%, but it definitely has that low budget, grainy feel from his old days.
Ironically, both Quentin Tarantino movies that have Samuel L. Jackson in them.
Both of them have Samuel L. Jackson. Both of them are done by chapters, even though this one's a little more linear than the previous. Um, and both of them have a lot of people dying, actually. In fact, now that I think of it. So yeah, that's a thing too.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's a definitely an interesting watch. It's probably good for at least one good long sit through. It is a relatively long movie. We need to warn you about that.
yeah, it's
The time will probably pass pretty quickly, but it is a long one.
yeah, it's 2 hours and 48 minutes. Now there is a quote unquote. I don't know how much extended it is, but there's an extended edition that's on Netflix as well. That's split into episodes where it's actually separate videos, so you can kind of chop it up instead of
Oh,
watching it straight through if somebody wants to watch it that way. But I honestly just prefer to just watch the movie version straight through.
yeah, I'd rather just a straight through version, and honestly, it doesn't feel like anything's missing from this.
I do have to bring up because this we didn't really mention this during the synopsis. The running gag of
Oh,
you
the
gotta
door.
kick the door open.
Just to prove that this is a pseudo comedy, yes, the door got busted when the family got killed that owned the building. So now, because of it, and I believe it's Bob is to blame because he's the one that shot the door in order to get at the help that was outside still. He mutters later on that he's really frustrated with it, and why did he even do that? Because the door is permanently messed up. They have to basically close the door and put up at least two planks of wood, nail both planks to the wall and to the door in order to keep the door from bulging open.
Yeah. So whenever anyone has went outside for whatever reason, when they come back, they have to kick the door in and then reboard it to hold it shut.
Except for the one instance.
Yeah, the one instance where they know they're not going to be that long, so John literally just stands against the door, holding it shut with his back. But yeah, that cracked me up, and like so, every group that comes through for the first time is like, "What fucking idiot broke the door?" And then when it like the last two to come in are Marquis and Bob. Marquis goes, "What idiot broke the door?" And Bob just stops, stares at him, and goes, "Just shut up and fix the door." Like just he we So we don't know until later in the movie in the flashback how the door got broken. But the minute he paused like that, it's like he's the one that broke the door.
Yeah, you know he's the one to blame for it. The why is not sure, but you know he's the blame for it.
That part that part cracked me up. So it's the recurring thing with the door. And there's just there are so many weird little conversations too where like even though the one guy is not actually the hangman, he's one of their gang members. He had so many weird little philosophical conversations about hanging people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he really got into that role that he was playing for as a cover story.
Matter of fact, I have a quote here. The man who pulls the lever that breaks your neck will be the dispassionate man. And that dispassion is the very essence of justice. For justice delivered without dispassion is always in danger of not being justice.
Because if you let emotions get in the way, you might make the wrong decision.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized looking at the cast list, because the weird thing is, they're throughout most of the movie, there, in spite of it being the Hateful Eight, there's actually 9 people in the cabin. But OB is actually not a hateful person, unlike everyone else that's in there.
Right.
So I realized it's like he's the one guy that's not part of the Hateful Eight.
Eight
That's
that's
part of the
counted,
main
yeah.
cast. But everybody else has like some despicable thing about them, either because they're not exactly good guys in spite of being the good guys, or because they're actually the criminals.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's and the thing is, when I watched this originally, I also thought it was going to be more of a normal western. Could you just see people in outfits that you associate with like a western,
Right.
and you think but no, it's almost um it's more like a murder mystery where the mystery starts before the murder actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Where the murder's already happened, you just don't know that it's
yeah,
happened yet.
well, and, yeah, but they also start giving you like hints that something's
Something's,
wrong before the
yeah, something's
coffee
up.
thing happens. But until that happens, you're sitting there going, "Is there actually something wrong, or is everybody just paranoid?" You don't really know for sure until somebody there actually poisoned the coffee. Okay.
One of them fellas is not what he says he is.
Well, again, Marquis was lucky that he was currently drinking brandy instead of coffee when that happened.
Right.
I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say about the movie before we wrap things up?
Very nice production, some very good music, a hell of a storyline. And outside of the flashback, it's all told pretty linearly. So if you're someone who usually got lost, like following Pulp Fiction, because that movie really mixed and matched where timelines are at, you won't have that much of a problem with this one. They chapterized it just perfectly. So the one chapter that's out of place is just so you catch up, and then you're back at it again.
And I also agree that this is a great movie, a good movie. It's a very good movie. It's one of those ones where it's also hard to talk about too much because, as we kind of said, there's a lot
You
of language in this we can't
A
repeat.
lot of language and a lot of things you don't want to completely give away either, depending upon what people might want to hear or don't want to hear.
So, it is one that although we kind of spoiled the story, but we do that every time because we go through what happens. Um, it is definitely a movie that I think is worth at least a one-time watch. Like even if you, though I will admit, if you're someone who gets squeamish from lots of blood, this is one to steer
Definitely not
clear
it.
of. This is one to
Yeah.
steer clear of if you have an issue with seeing lots of blood, and particularly effects that involve brains flying out of people's heads.
And people vomiting.
Oh yeah, people vomiting blood. Yeah, there's a, I It's a good thing. When I was younger, I probably wouldn't have been able to deal with this movie watching it, honestly. But I'd seen it. But at this point, I've seen so many violent movies that like, and violent stuff in video games too. That like, it's just like you kind of go holy shit, but at the same time, it doesn't affect you like it would have back in the
Yeah.
day when you hadn't seen so much shit and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who normally avoids gory, bloody movies, don't watch this. But I think that is it. What's the movie you had picked out for next time?
Next time is gonna be Phantom of the Paradise.
Uh Another kind of obscure niche movie like Hawk the
Uh,
Slayer was.
this one's a little more popular. It actually stayed in theaters for about, I want to say it was 10 years in Canada.
Hmm,
Fun fact.
that's impressive.
Oh yeah. Uh, it's we considered in Canada to be the best musical ever made. Apparently, at least in that area.
Well then, until next time, everybody, have a good one.
Good night.